15 accountants crashed, but this brave delivery girl told the millionaire, "Don't sign that." The shrill scream of a startled secretary pierced the air, sending a shockwave through the bustling corporate office. Panic erupted as 15 accountants crumpled to the floor, their bodies clamoring for breath like deflating balloons. It was a scene out of a nightmare. Papers flew, heels clacked against the polished tiles, chaos reigned. No one knew why they were gasping in agony, but one thing was clear: something sinister was happening. Among the panicking crowd, a young delivery girl, Mia, stood frozen. Her heart raced as she watched the millionaire, a man known for his ruthless business deals, rise from his chair. He stared at the fallen accountants, confusion etched across his face. But instead of fleeing, Mia felt a strange compulsion to act. "Don't sign that!" she yelled, her voice raw and desperate, echoing against the walls. Everyone turned to her, stunned. Who was she to intervene? Her mind raced with questions. Why were the accountants gasping like fish out of water? The millionaire's signature was poised over a document, a mix of greed and confusion flickering in his eyes. It was as if an unseen hand guided her words, urging her to jump into the chaos. The tension thickened, a palpable force that wrapped around them like a choking fog. The room fell silent, the murmurs and gasps replaced by heavy breaths. A knot tightened in Mia's chest. Danger surged through her veins like an electric current. What did she stumble into? What dark truth lurked beneath this corporate facade? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the millionaire hesitated, his pen hovering over the dangerous paper, the truth began to unravel like an old film reel, flashing scenes of betrayal, greed, and hidden agendas. Mia could feel the sweat trickling down her back as she prepared for the unfolding drama. Would he ignore her warning? Would the accountants remain lifeless on the floor? With each passing second, the tension escalated, gripping the room like a vice. Mia's heart thundered in her chest. What if this was all a terrible mistake? What happened next would change everything. Would that document seal the fate of more than just a business deal? The millionaire's pen trembled in the air, caught between desire and doubt. His gaze flickered back to the accountants sprawled on the floor, their faces a haunting tableau of fear and desperation. It was as if their very souls were crying out against the dark undertaking. Every fiber of Mia's being screamed for him to listen to her, yet she felt the weight of his cutthroat reputation heavy in the atmosphere. Why shouldn't I sign? He spat, his voice laced with irritation and arrogance, yet tinged with uncertainty. These men are liabilities now, and this deal is my ticket to soaring profits. You don't understand. Mia locked eyes with him, determination igniting her resolve. If you sign that, it isn't just your business you're destroying. Look at them. She gestured wildly at the accountants. The fear in their eyes was palpable, and the thought of their lives shattering under corporate greed jolted her with urgency. They were fine a moment ago. Something's not right. A tremor of realization flickered in the millionaire's expression as he surveyed the scene before him. The office was alive with chaos, but there was something deeper, a sinister undercurrent, a heavy mist that suggested foul play. As Mia stepped closer, she could see the fine sheen of sweat on his forehead, his facade cracking. Call for help. A voice rang out from the back of the room, and Mia turned to see another executive holding a phone, his hand trembling. What was happening here? The air buzzed with confusion mixed with dread. Each second felt like an eternity. She could almost hear the ticking of a clock, counting down to an irreparable disaster. Don't sign that, Mia pleaded, her voice straining against the rising anxiety around her. Please. I might not be from your world, but I know when something feels wrong. His pen tip was poised on the paper, but he hesitated longer. The accountant struggled to breathe, the tide of oxygen receding from the room as it sunk into darkness. One of them clawed the floor, gasping as if trying to pull air from the very tiles. As the millionaire lowered his pen, his face twisted in confusion, the lights flickered above them, and a low hum filled the room, swirling through the chaos. Laughter. No, that wasn't laughter. It was something darker, echoing through the office, creeping into their minds. Where was it coming from? And just as quickly as it began, silence fell again. All eyes turned back to the millionaire, who was now staring at the document as if it were a coiled snake ready to strike. That was the moment Mia noticed the letterhead, something she hadn't seen before. Sabatino Enterprises sprawled across the top in bold letters, marked with an insignia that suffocated her heart. She had heard the whispers of their shady dealings, backdoor trades draped in shadows. Wait, she said, adrenaline pumping through her veins as the realization hit. Your deal, it's connected to them. They can't be trusted. But the millionaire was deep in thought, caught between greed and the growing dread. The accountants continued to crash against the floor like waves against a rocky shore, each gasp more agonized than the last. Would he open his eyes to the danger? Or would he dive headfirst into the darkness, sealing not just his fate, but those around him? The room pulsed with tension, waiting for his decision. And then a scream erupted from the back, piercing through the suffocating silence like a gunshot. Mia turned, shocked and terrified. Where had she stumbled into? What awaited them in the next heartbeat? The moment had arrived, and the stakes were higher than she ever imagined. As her heart raced, she braced herself for what was to come, neither of them knowing what would ultimately unfold. Would courage prevail, or would the shadows claim them all? What could be lurking behind that final signature? Mia's heart pounded in her chest as the shrill scream faded into panicked whispers. The room transformed into a huddle of fear and desperation as the accountants struggled to pull themselves together, their faces twisted in agony. She could see their eyes darting around, searching for answers in the growing darkness, but they found none. That screech had come from a woman in the corner, an accountant clutching her throat, as if the very air she needed had betrayed her, stolen away by some unseen force. Something's happening to them. Mia shouted, her voice slicing through the murmurs. She felt the millionaire's presence next to her, trembling now, the weight of his indecision crushing him. He jerked his head in her direction, confusion morphing his features. Why is this happening? He gasped, grasping the edge of the desk for support. Mia took a step closer to him, her voice earnest. What did you do? This deal, it has to be linked to Sabatino Enterprises. They're known for their dirty tricks. The millionaire's eyes narrowed, shadows sweeping over his features as if the darkness was pooling within him. You're sure? I wish I wasn't. Mia shot back, her voice rising. Look. Look at them. She pointed to the group on the floor. A slow wave of realization seemed to spread through them, panic bleeding into resolve. One accountant pushed himself up, staring straight at the millionaire. Don't sign, sir. They'll ruin you. His voice trembled, urgency lacing every syllable. The room held its breath, caught in an eerie stillness, the tension thick enough to slice. Suddenly, a grotesque cough erupted from another accountant, followed by a series of exploitative gasps. The sound echoed a haunting familiarity that churned in Mia's stomach. Get back! She yelled, as some tried to get closer to their boss, desperate for reassurance. But their gestures were frantic, flailing as if handled by invisible strings pulling them into a morass. Then everything changed. The lights flickered again, only this time, they wouldn't stay on. The hum in the air seemed to pulsate, dark and electric. With a snap, the fluorescent lights died. Emergency! Call for help! The voice from before, whose apprehension now turned to panic, echoed back through the dark. The millionaire's expression hardened. He was fighting something internal, a storm gushing behind his steel blue eyes. Please, Mia pressed, you can't let them go down with you. Her own hands shook, but she steadied them, gesturing to the motionless form sprawled against the tiles. Somewhere in her mind, she knew she couldn't let him sign. Not with lives at stake. A sudden crash came from somewhere in the office. The sound shattered the silence, a reminder of the chaos lurking just beyond the door. Mia's pulse quickened. Dread clawed at her as she glanced toward the entrance. Would help arrive in time? Make a choice. She implored. They may be your assets, but they're human. Under the blanket of their collective fear, the millionaire's mind wrestled between ambition and compassion. Would greed trump the humanity before him? Finally, with a newfound determination, he planted his feet. Yet just as he opened his mouth, the door burst open. A tall figure, cloaked in shadows and authority, entered. Mia gasped as the dark silhouette stepped into the light, revealing a familiar face that made her stomach drop. No, not you, she muttered in horror. What had that face meant for them? And what would happen now that their interruption had arrived? Time slipped through their fingers as the next crisis loomed larger, heavy with the promise of darker revelations. The real stakes were only beginning to surface, and with them, the reality of their impending doom. Would they ever escape the grip of Sabatino Enterprises? In the heart of impending chaos, Mia understood one unyielding truth: this was far from over. Mia felt the chill spread through her as the shadowy figure stepped into the light, revealing a familiar face etched in malice: Victor Sabatino himself. His piercing gaze locked onto hers, and for a moment, everything fell silent. It was as if the world collectively held its breath. Ah, Mia, he said, that predatory smile stretching across his lips. I see you're still meddling where you don't belong. The millionaire recoiled slightly, confusion and dread steeping in his features. You. What are you doing here? Sabatino ignored him, his gaze resting on the writhing accountants. Such delicate little lives you have here, he drawled, his tone that of a twisted benefactor observing a circus. All this fuss for what? Just a bit of paperwork. Mia's heart raced as the words echoed in the dim, flickering light. She could feel their fears shifting. She couldn't let them lose hope now. Why are you doing this? She shouted, adrenaline surging through her. You want him to sign? This is a threat, isn't it? Victor leaned back, reveling in the tension, his black suit absorbing the light around him. Threats are such ugly things, my dear. I'm simply reminding him of the stakes, and I assure you, they are very real. The unease grew palpable, as the accountants shivered on the floor, their faces a reflection of pure terror. Mia forced herself to keep her voice steady, even as her hands trembled. This isn't just business. You can't toy with lives. Ah, but business is life in my world, he taunted, brushing away her concern with a wave. And this particular venture? It's worth every last ounce of desperation in this room. She could see the millionaire wavering, caught in the web of Sabatino's psychological stranglehold. He swallowed hard, eyes darting between Sabatino and his accountants. Fear gripped his features, forcing him to reconsider. It's not just about you. Mia cried, stepping forward, desperate to reach him. They trust you. They're counting on you. Victor stepped closer, eyes gleaming with a predatory light. A good leader knows when to cut the dead weight. A groan from one accountant broke the tension, his face pallid and slick with sweat. Don't listen to him, sir. He'll destroy everything. The millionaire glanced away, visibly shaken, and Mia seized the opportunity. You need to fight this. Fight for them. They deserve better. Victor's laughter echoed through the room, cold and hollow. They are merely pawns in this game. You do well to remember that, Mia. The lights flickered violently, and for a split second, the world around them seemed to pulse, the air thickening with dread. The accountants pressed closer to one another, hands grasping for reassurance. Then it happened again, a crash against the wall, splintering the silence as the lights fell completely. Shadows writhed, the chaos echoing like a heartbeat within the darkened room. Tension gripped the air, and every heart raced. "Get out," the millionaire shouted, breaking a voice that trembled with fear and fury. "Get everyone out of here." Victor stepped back, amusement curving his lips. "Oh, I wouldn't do that if I were you." "The countdown has begun." Mia turned sharply toward him, adrenaline surging as the implications settled in. "Countdown to what?" "Why, the complete takeover of everything you hold dear. Just a few signatures, and poof." He snapped his fingers dramatically, reveling in his dark jest. "And all these lives will be forfeit." Mia's chest tightened. She felt the weight of their lives pressing heavily on her, and doubt began to gnaw at the edges of her resolve. Would they be able to outsmart this monster, or was it all a prelude to tragedy? A shudder rippled through the room, the darkness deeper than before, and she knew, this was just the beginning. Something snapped inside her. "Not if we fight back." With a flash of determination, Mia met the millionaire's eyes, urging him toward the glimmer of courage festering beneath the fear. If Sabatino thought he could just walk in and take their lives, he was about to learn a lesson. "Are you with me?" she whispered. Urgently, the weight of hope riding on her shoulders, but as she stood there, bracing for the ultimate showdown, a shriek pierced the silence, drowning them all in a wave of uncertainty. What horror awaited them now? The clock ticked on, and the stakes grew dangerously high. The shriek shattered the air, bursting like glass against the wall and ricocheting off the cold concrete. An accountant, pale and trembling, pointed toward the door. Panic erupted, turning the room into a whirlwind of dread. "What was that?" the millionaire stammered, his bravado melting away. Victor laughed, a tight and wheezing sound. "Just a little insurance policy of mine, darling," he replied, as if discussing the weather. "You see, the countdown isn't merely for drama. It's for effect." He nodded towards a shadow obscured in the corner, where a figure writhed, limbs askew. Mia's heart sank. There had to be a way to turn this around. She couldn't let Victor toy with them any longer. Desperation clawed at her insides as she stepped closer to the frightened millionaire. "Listen to me. We can't let him dictate our fate. We have to keep fighting." Victor rolled his eyes, a theatrical sigh escaping his lips. "Oh, Mia, you persist. How charming. But take a good look. Fear does wonders for the soul." The accountant's eyes darted between Mia and Victor, their breaths shallow. A drop of sweat trickled down Mia's back as she felt their collective anxiety weighing upon her like lead. "Do you really want to live a life bound by fear?" she shouted, her voice breaking through the chaos. "What kind of a leader allows fear to govern their choices?" "That's easy for you to say," the millionaire retorted, his voice quivering. "You're not the one in charge here. What do you know about leading, about protecting?" Mia hesitated, but only for a heartbeat. "I know enough to fight. That's what true leadership is." Just then, the lights flickered back momentarily, revealing the accountant writhing on the floor. His face was twisted in terror, and panic surged through the crowd. "Help him!" someone cried. "Focus! We can't give up!" Mia shouted, determination igniting in her veins. "Stay with me on 3. The cold emptiness that had settled in the room began to thaw, the accountants pushing forward as one. A second scream echoed through the hallway beyond, drowning the oppressive atmosphere with a surge of adrenaline. 2. Mia's heart raced as she locked eyes with the millionaire, waiting for his response. There it was, the flicker of understanding behind layered fear. He straightened up. "We can't let fear control us," he whispered, his voice barely loud enough to cut through the chaos. 3. Mia rallied, and for a fleeting moment, it felt like the air shifted, the tide turning back toward agency, toward action. Victor stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "You think you can rally these sheep? They'll devour each other before they rally to your little cause." But Mia pressed on. The accountants, emboldened by her words, began to stand. What had once been individual souls fraught with terror morphed into a united front. Suddenly, yet another crash erupted from the hallway, this time a reckless body slamming against the door. The cycle of terror seemed endless, suffocating, and within that moment of chaos, a member of the team broke free, charging toward Victor with unexpected newfound bravery. The moment hung precariously in the air. "We can do this," Mia urged, her voice rising above the clamor. Victor's laughter turned sinister as the body approached, desperation pushing past fear. "Go ahead, little sheep, but remember, they're still my pawns. And pawns never win." As the accountants gritted their teeth, steeling themselves for confrontation, Mia braced for whatever Victor had planned. The whispers of dread slithered through the air, heightened by an unmistakable tension that flared up like an electric current. Just then, the door burst open, revealing a dark figure shrouded in uncertainty. Mia couldn't make out the face, but fear snagged her breath as she realized this was someone or something she didn't expect. What fresh horror was this? Had Victor unleashed reinforcements? Or was it something more sinister? As anticipation built like a coiled spring, Mia could feel it. The clock was ticking louder than ever, and each tick brought them closer to a point of no return. Together. She screamed, but would they have the strength to face what was coming next? And would it be enough to outsmart the monster that had dragged them into this web of chaos? The figure lingered in the doorway, a silhouette edged in shadow, limbs contorted like a marionette pulled by unseen strings. Mia's pulse quickened. What loomed in the darkness? Her instincts screamed at her to retreat, but she forced her feet to stay rooted to the ground. "Who are you?" The millionaire's voice trembled, a far cry from the tough exterior he'd worn just moments ago. The dark figure stirred. As the light flickered once more, Mia's breath caught. It was another accountant, but his eyes gleamed with a wild, desperate intensity. "You have to stop him," he shouted, his voice rough like gravel. "Stop who?" Mia demanded, heart pounding as she moved to intercept him, blocking his path to Victor. The accountants behind her followed suit, their collective fear morphing into a shield against the uncertain future. "Victor!" The accountant gasped, nearly collapsing under the weight of his revelation. He's not just playing games. He wants to use us, turn us into something monstrous." "It's true," echoed another voice from the crowd, a young woman with wide eyes full of terror. He threatened more than just our jobs. He wants to break us." Victor stepped forward, a sadistic smile curling at the corners of his lips. "Finally, the truth unfolds like a beautiful flower. Fear is the best fertilizer," he sneered. "But no one wants to admit they're already part of my garden." The air felt charged, like the quiet before a storm. Mia's fingers trembled, but she kept her stance resolute. "You're wrong, Victor. They're not flowers, they're people. There's still time to fight back." The millionaire seemed to cocoon himself in a bubble of denial, arms crossed tightly over his chest. "And what would you have us do? We're outnumbered and outmatched. It's a fool's errand." Mia shot him a fierce glare. "Or maybe it's the bravest choice we'll ever make. We can't fold under pressure, we have to stand up." A growl rippled through the room. The accountants, infused with a mix of confusion and flickering hope, exchanged glances. Their confidence wavered, but Mia felt that they had a choice. If they charged forward together, they might have a shot. Suddenly, there was a loud crash from the entrance, so powerful it rattled the walls. Victor's grin widened as he turned his gaze toward the noise. "Ah, my special delivery has arrived," he chuckled, devoid of true amusement. Mia's heart dropped. "What now?" she whispered, glancing around at the others. Fear threatened to overtake her, but she forced it back. "Stay close. Whatever it is, we face it together." The door burst open once more. A swarm of figures poured in, not just accountants, but grotesque creatures twisted from shadows, faces vaguely familiar, distorted by terror and mindless obedience. Fear pulsed through the air, suffocating, as Mia recognized them as those who had previously sat in the room, now transformed into tools of Victor's dark desires. This can't be happening. She stammered, feeling the weight of despair press down on her chest. Victor laughed, a harsh, cruel echo reverberating in the chaos. You see. The weak become feral. They've chosen to submit. Who will be next to embrace the dark? Mia's breath hitched, her mind racing through plans that felt almost impossible. Each second counted, the countdown still ticking ominously in the background, promising nothing but pain if they failed to act. The accountants recoiled but didn't scatter. They still stood by Mia, uncertain but defiant. Don't let him win. She urged. We can turn this around, find a way to break his hold. But the creatures around them growled, an army of despair poised to strike, and the clock continued to count down behind the chaos. She felt the heartbeat of the room outpaced by the rapid ticking, each sound drumming in tandem with the fear bubbling within her. Would the accountants find the strength to wrest control from Victor and face the horrors surrounding them? Before she could draw in her next breath, the ground shook underfoot. The time for action was running out. Would they succumb to the darkness, or fight for their humanity? In that moment of collective uncertainty, the atmosphere shimmered with an electric blend of dread and courage. Would hope flicker back to life or fade into the shadows? The moment had come, and only time would tell which would emerge victorious. Panic surged through the room, a tangible wave threatening to drown them all. Mia's mind raced, desperate for a strategy to combat the grotesque figures edging closer. Each growl sent chills down her spine, bones rattling just beneath the skin. Listen to me. She shouted, raising her voice above the roar of dread. We can't let them take us. We have to remember who we are. The accountants shifted nervously, their fear making them stiff. But then, like a flicker of light in a pitch-black night, one older man, his glasses slipping down his nose, stepped forward. She's right. We've been weak, but we're still here. We owe it to ourselves to fight. Encouraged, others began to nod, and an electric pulse of unity rippled among them. Mia felt her heart pound in sync with the heartbeat of courage swelling in the room. Look, there are too many of them. A voice cried from the back, laced with fear. What if we don't make it? What if we stop? Mia snapped, cutting through the negativity like a blade. Yes, they're powerful, but they're not invincible. We can push back if we fight together. A collective murmur emerged, rolling through the accountants like a wave. The shadowy figures hissed, shadows flickering and morphing near the flickering lights. Suddenly, Victor roared with laughter, the sound sharp and cruel. Is that all you have? Your words? Pathetic. He taunted, eyes gleaming with gleeful malice. You think you're going to break my hold? These are my creations, my legacy. You are just fodder. The creatures surrounding them advanced, their forms shifting and quaking with a malevolence that twisted Mia's stomach. But there was no time to falter. She could feel the grip of fear tightening, but she pushed against it like an exhausting current. Everyone! Mia shouted, her voice rising above the noise. We need to focus. Each of us has skills. Remember what we're capable of. Use it against him. She caught the gaze of the terrified woman from before, trembling at the back. Can you calculate what his weaknesses are? Find a way to disrupt whatever it is he's doing. Nodding quickly, the woman pulled out a small tablet, fingers flying over the screen. I can find patterns, she whispered, breathless with hope. But he might not give us time to execute anything. As if rehearsed, the monster bodies slithered closer, clamoring around Victor like a pack of wolves. Strained growls harmonized into a chilling chorus, filling every hollow space in the room with dread, a dark symphony of chaos. Together! The older accountant yelled, rallying behind Mia. The accountants encircled her, hands clasped, breaths coming in quick bursts. With one final surge of determination, Mia stepped forward, positioning herself as the front line against the darkness. Let us break this hold before it consumes us. Just then, something within her snapped into place, a realization that tightened her chest with a mix of fear and fury. Victor's creatures weren't just mindless animals, there was a flicker of humanity locked inside them. A small chance to reach past the madness. But time was running out. A low rumble reverberated as Victor's face contorted with rage. You think you can breathe life into them? They will only serve me. They will thrive on your weaknesses. As Mia rushed toward the approaching horde, the frantic countdown blasted louder in her ears, driving her forward. Was there still a chance? Could they reach those pulled into the darkness? In that moment, as shadows swirled with desperation, Mia had to know, would they fight back, or would despair claim them all? In the final instant, before everything erupted in chaos, she caught sight of Victor, hunched over, eyes ablaze with fury. Was his dark power truly limitless, or could they discover the key to unbinding the twisted souls he held captive? As the first creature lunged and the accountants braced for impact, a question lingered: would bravery be enough to break Victor's hold on their minds, or was it too late? Mia thrust herself forward, heart racing, every muscle taut with an electric urgency. The monstrous forms lunged, their grotesque snarls a whirlwind that clawed at her mind. She felt an overwhelming swell of desperation crash around her, but a strange determination surged within her, the need to protect those who stood beside her. Focus! She yelled, her voice ringing out above the chaos. Focus on your skills. Use what you know. The accountants, shaking yet resolute, began to form a plan, rallying behind her like a tide striking the shore. Each of them flickered to life, their singular strengths shining through the dread. One, a spreadsheet wizard, fiddled with numbers in his head, calculating escape routes. Another had an impeccable memory for codes and was feverishly recalling data that could hold the key to Victor's control. I saw the patterns. The woman with the tablet gasped. Victor's creations, his power is strongest when they're grouped together. If we can disrupt them, we can weaken him. Mia's eyes widened. Then let us separate them. We break their group, distract them by time to reach the ones we can save. Victor's laugh echoed like a chilling wind, taunting. Foolish mice. You cannot comprehend the forces you are toying with. My creations thrive on fear. You will feed them, leaving only dust behind. In that moment, one of the creatures lunged at Mia, jaws snapping like a bear trap. She barely dodged, her heart in her throat. She could see its eyes, human, distorted by rage and pain. With a surge of compassion, she felt a connection, a wave of hope that surged just from witnessing a flicker of humanity. She believed they could reach these beings. Stand your ground. She yelled. We're not just fighting them, we're fighting for them, too. They're not lost. With renewed vigor, the accountants spread out, forming a perimeter around Mia. They stood tall, hands clasped, breathing in unison. The rhythmic sound of their collective breaths seemed to create a bubble of defiance amidst the chaos. The shadows flickered uncertainly, hesitating as they sensed the united front. Now! Mia commanded, pointing toward the dense cluster of creatures. Push them back. Create a break. We have to get to the ones who can hear us. As they moved together, a fierce energy ignited in the accountants. Line by line, they stepped forward, pushing against the encroaching darkness. The creatures began to hiss in dismay, their confidence faltering under the weight of conviction. Remember who we are. Echoed the older accountant, raising his voice to rally the others. We are more than what Victor says. Frantic clashing resonated as the accountants formed a barrier, and with each chant of solidarity, the creatures recoiled. Out of the corner of her eye, Mia saw Victor's expression twist, confusion replacing the arrogance. No. This can't. Victory surged within her as they pushed back harder, linking their strengths like a chain. But it was then, in a moment of horrifying irony, that Mia realized they were losing time. The creatures continued to squirm, the chaos closing in like a vice. Mia! The woman with the tablet exclaimed, sweat beading on her forehead. I'm almost there. Just a bit longer. Hold them. Mia shouted back, hands tightened into fists, fingers trembling. We can do this. Together. But as the last creature lunged with a feral cry, something unexpected happened. One of the accountants found herself lost in fear, tripping as the tide of shadows surged. Mia's heart dropped. Time slipped away, threatening to engulf them all. Could they hold on long enough to break Victor's dark grip? As Victor's sinister laughter filled the air, revealing just how much he relished their struggle, Mia braced herself. Would they shatter the hold, or would despair gnaw at their souls? The air crackled with tension, and a dread realization loomed. If fear won today, it could be the last stand. She felt a cold chill, knowing they were teetering on the edge of a dark abyss. Uncertainty lingered as the battle intensified, draining their strength. Would courage be enough to reshuffle fate, or would Victor's shadow eclipse their last hope? Mia's breath hitched as she watched the chaos spiral around her. The fallen accountant's gasp echoed through the air, igniting a fire of dread. Fear seeped into the accountant's ranks, each one wavering as they fought against the monstrous tide. Mia, help her! Shouted the spreadsheet wizard, his wide eyes darting toward the girl who had tripped. The shadows writhed like snakes, each creature's rage growing fiercer. They could smell the vulnerability, and it filled the air like a sickly sweet perfume. Just inches from the fallen woman, one hulking figure lashed out, its claws gleaming with raw malice. Mia's instincts took over. She sprinted toward the fallen accountant, heart pounding fiercely in her chest. Get up! You can do it! We need you! She called. But as she reached for the accountant's hand, another creature lunged. With a fierce yell, Mia threw herself into its path, feet skidding against the slick floor. A split second felt like an eternity. Suddenly, an eruption of sound broke through the clamor. The older accountant raised a fire extinguisher, the silver hardware glinting under the flickering lights. I can create a distraction. He shouted with a confidence that radiated like sunlight breaking through clouds. What happened next shocked everyone. He unleashed a thick cloud of white foam, delivering a blinding blow to the nearest creatures. They recoiled, snarls morphing into confused yelps. Vapors filled the air, swirling around them and capturing shadows in limbo. Move! Get to her! Mia urged, scrambling to grab the fallen accountant's arm. She hoisted her up with all her strength, adrenaline thrumming through her like a live wire. We can't give up. They're counting on us. The group formed a tight circle, resigning their fears to the storm. The accountant who had tripped gained her footing, eyes fierce with empowerment. There was a new determination glowing in the others too, igniting a light that dispelled some of the surrounding shadows. But even as they pushed forward, Victor's laughter echoed like an ominous bell tolling in the distance. The menacing shadow of their opponent loomed larger, darkening the path to freedom. You don't even know what you face. He sneered, a sick delight lacing his words. You think a band of frightened office workers can stand against me? Stop him! Mia shouted, pivoting her focus back to the encroaching forms. Victor thrives on your fear. Don't give him that power. The collective breaths of the accountants grew steadier again, a force of determination uniting them. They locked arms, standing as one against the tide. We're not merely numbers anymore. One voiced, rallying around the reignited spirit. Mia spotted something in the depths of the cluster, luminescent forms of those who had succumbed to Victor. If she could just, the thought took root. We must reach them. Don't let them fade away. With renewed vigor, they pushed forward, Mia leading like a beacon of light. Fear still clawed at the edges of her mind, but the flicker of hope burned brighter. In her heart, she believed they could shatter Victor's hold, but as they surged ahead, a deafening roar erupted, shaking the ground beneath them. Something dark and massive broke free from the shadows. It towered over them, grotesque and grinning. Victor's final defense. Mia's stomach twisted. They had to hold on, but the darkness was thickening. Stay with me! She shrieked, her voice cutting through the panic. In that moment, she realized that it was no longer just about defeating Victor, it was about saving the lost within those shadows. Would their courage withstand the final onslaught? As the ground trembled, and the monstrous figure advanced, Mia's determination surged. They had come so far, but would it be enough? The very air crackled with uncertainty. Time was slipping. Would they stand together, or would despair swallow them whole? The monstrous figure loomed, a grotesque manifestation of Victor's darkest desires. Its eyes flickered with the promise of chaos. But Mia felt something shift inside her. This was it. If they were going to fight back, it needed to be now. "Remember who you are," she shouted, her voice rising above the cacophony of dread. "We are more than Victor's pawns." The accountants rallied behind her. Something had sparked amongst them, a flicker of courage ignited by solidarity. The accountant who had been fallen earlier stepped forward, her fear turned to fire. "We have skills. Let us use them," she exclaimed. Mia nodded, feeling fire in her own belly. "Calculate and strategize. Disrupt them." The air shifted as they formed a wall of resilience. One by one, they began to chant the talents they brought to the table, weaving them together in a tapestry of defiance, amplifying their strength. The spreadsheet wizard called out his insights, pointing to flaws in the shadow creature's formation, while the girl with the tablet translated his data into actionable moves. "Circle the edges. Divide and conquer," she cried, eyes blazing, and as if possessed by an unseen force, the accountants took one collective step toward Victor. With shaking limbs but steady hearts, they moved, pushing back against the tide of Victor's dark creations. Each chant filled the room with a new kind of energy. The creatures flinched, their monstrous forms hesitating, unsure of what they faced. Mia's heart beat faster, each pulse guiding her closer to the center of the chaos. The monstrous figure charged, but Mia stood firm. "Stay focused. Together," she urged. They locked arms, forming a line against the oncoming storm. She could feel their fear melting away, replaced by the undeniable strength of their will to fight back. In that moment of unity, something astonishing happened. As they drew closer to Victor, the flickers of light emanating from their hearts cast shadows onto the encroaching darkness. Mia couldn't help but feel hope surge like tidal waves breaking against a shore. Together, they seemed to dim Victor's power. "Fools!" Victor spat, his face twisting in disbelief. "You can't fight what you don't understand." But Mia smiled, drawing breath from the strength of everyone around her. "We understand you all too well." She raised her voice, pushing past the shadows. "You're nothing without fear. And we refuse to give you that power." With that final declaration, they surged forward, unfurling their bravery like banners in the wind. The accountants gave everything they had, forming a tight block against Victor and his creations. As they clashed, bursts of light erupted among the darkness, cutting through the haze like bullets sent from fire. The monstrous figure hissed, recoiling back as if struck by a lightning bolt. Victor's facade cracked, rage boiling over. "No! This can't be happening!" he shouted, but Mia wasn't listening. She could feel the tide turning. "Go!" she urged her fellow accountants. "Split them up." Reach the ones trapped within the dark. The shroud of shadows began to disperse as they pressed in, rallying with newfound conviction. They tore through the darkness like a beacon, illuminating the souls ensnared by Victor's grip. One by one, the distorted faces began to clear. A flicker of recognition crossed them as they emerged, lost and confused but with a glimmer of hope. "Together. We will break you," the older accountant cried, rallying the transformed figures to join their side. They surged, pushing the wave of Victor's creations aside, reclaiming the light, and suddenly, everything changed. The grotesque creature that had been at the forefront faltered, its form unraveling in front of them. Mia felt the tremor in the ground, a palpable shift in the balance of power. They could win. With each accountant breaking through and joining the fight, Victor's hold wavered like a dying ember, flickering and dimming. "Leave!" Victor bellowed, his face twisted with desperation that mixed with impending ruin. "This isn't over. I will find you." But his words faded as they continued to break through the shadows, until at last, and then, it was done. Light flooded the room, banishing the remnants of Victor's dark creation. The tension dissolved into the air, and silence washed over the accountants as the darkness melted away. Gasps of relief echoed off the walls as they all stood together, still holding each other's hands, anchored in their victory. Mia blinked against the renewed brightness, her heart racing, tears streaming down her cheeks. It was over. They had reclaimed their humanity, their light. The millionaire stood awestruck, a new determination gleaming in his eyes. You saved us." Mia turned to him, her heart full of hope. "No, we saved each other. Fear doesn't define us, and together, we are strong." As they embraced their newfound power, a sense of warmth spread through the room. They had confronted darkness and emerged stronger than before. Time marched on beyond that moment. Days turned into weeks, and the accountants reclaimed their lives, no longer bound by fear, rising as individuals and a collective force transformed. Victor's name faded into the shadows of memory. Mia found peace in her role among them, a reminder that courage shines brightest in the darkest of circumstances. As they departed from the wreckage of that office, laughter filled the air, echoing the sounds of rebirth. They would always remember, united and unafraid, and ready to face whatever came next together. As the camera zooms out, capturing the silhouettes of a community emerging into the sunlight, the call echoes through the air, "You need to subscribe now." This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. And flood the comments with your reactions and theories about what comes next. You don't want to miss the exclusive stories we're bringing to you.